It says meeting is now streaming.
Yeah, it's slowly uploading, but it's getting there.
Okay. The reason I told you about my problem is someone else might have it too.
Never know.
It says meeting is now streaming.
Yeah, it's slowly uploading, but it's getting there.
Okay.
Oh, see?
The reason I told you about my problem is someone else might have it too.
Never know.
It says meeting is now streaming. Oh, Ken.
Yeah, I was able to make it on time.
It's getting there.
Okay.
Aren't you lucky?
I was waiting for my big announcement, you know? Okay.
All right.
Am I streaming still? Where am I? Yep, it should be. Let me-
So let me call him up.
Is it live streaming or not? I can't tell.
I think it is. I'm going to start at 5 after. Hopefully others, Lisa's here now. Kevin, Lisa, and Ken.
Good evening, Bob.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Oh, we're so proper. Okay. Michael.
Hi.
Hi, Michael. Can I ask that when we go to the different departments, you give us the page number in the binder so we can find it?
Sure.
The budget prep worksheet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when we do that, Michael, we should use the we should use the I guess the scanned one. So, you know, so it would be like if you were looking at the table of organization for administration, it would be page 32 of 184. So we should use page.
Does everyone have, is everyone looking at the electronic version or the,
Well, I'm
Some
looking at
people-
the print. I have a printed book.
yeah,
All right,
so it won't help.
So do I. I have
So
a
then it won't
printed-
help saying that'll confuse them.
All right. So I guess, all right. So then we will rely on you, Michael, for the page number on the right side of the page.
So does the printed book correlate with the one that's online?
It's the same thing, but the page numbers on the top are different than the page numbers on the page itself because
So when you give the page number, because I'm going through the book, is it possible that you can have the reference for the book?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
so-
I asked for.
So
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
look in the budget, when you look at the budget prep work, if you have it printed out, if you go to the budget prep section of the book, on the top right, there are page numbers. I'll tell you the page number on of the budget prep.
Okay, that sounds good. Sounds fair.
Yes, so just go to that section. I'll say, what's the first department we have is fire.
Fire tonight. Yep.
So that
How are
would
you,
be-
Michael?
Okay, Michael is going to be late because he teaches tonight. So, and I am giving us 2 more minutes and then we'll open.
Page 49 on the budget prep is,
Hey, good evening, Ken. What's up, Ken?
Hello,
How are you?
good.
That's good.
And yourself?
2 nights in a row. Tonight I got an early start on it. So yesterday I was punching in tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I was going to be late, but then I was able to make it.
Okay.
So you see page 49?
Oh, it's 49? All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know.
Hold on 1 second.
And Michael, where's O&E? Like on page 49, I just, it has fire salary and wages.
Go down a
And then
little.
we have the regular pay.
Keep
And then
going.
like about 10 lines down, it says fire, other expenses, but there's no dollar amounts there.
Keep going
We
down.
have no
Postage.
other-
You see postage?
Yeah,
underneath?
is there a summary of all?
Yeah, it's on the
O&E?
last page. On page 52.
Okay.
Listen, excuse me, Ken, I'm going to open the meeting in less than a minute.
Okay, I see it here. Yes, these are tough documents to work with.
Yes.
But if you also look at the budget appropriation section, it totals it also there.
Okay, everybody. Yancy?
We are live and recording.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Englewood City Council Budget Workshop Meeting. Today is March 1st, 2023, and it is 7:05. Yancy, can we do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to
to the flag
of
of the United States of America
and to
and
the
and
the
to the
republic
republic
for
for
which
which
it
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice for all.
all. All right, Yancy, could you please read the statement regarding the Open Public Meetings Act?
This budget workshop meeting was called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notice of this meeting was published in the record on February 14th, 2023. In addition, a copy of the notice was posted on the city's website, the bulletin board in the municipal building, and filed in the office of the municipal clerk on aforementioned date. Notice on the bulletin board has remained continuously posted. Please take notice that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et seq, and Local Finance Notice 2020-21, establishing standard protocols, the City Council of the City of Englewood adopted resolution number 056-01-24-23, authorizing the City of Englewood schedule of council budget workshop meetings for 2023 to be held remotely via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so by calling or clicking on the links below at 7 p.m. or by dialing 929-205-6099. Please see link on our website. Meeting ID is 5727-6776 and passcode is 421116. Individuals will be able to fully participate in the meeting, including providing public comment. Public comments may be submitted by 3 p.m. on the date of the meeting, either through written letter or email to meeting@cityofenglewood.org. All written comments shall be read during the public forum portion of the meeting and shall be subject to the same time limitations for public speaking. Duplicative comments shall be noted for the record and summarized. The agenda for the meeting can be found on the city's website at www.cityofenglewood.org. A separate meeting will be used if closed session is required. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Yancy. Roll call.
I don't see Councilman Cobb. Councilman Rosenzweig,
Here,
Councilman Wilson,
Present.
Councilwoman Wasatski,
Present.
Council President Marin.
Here.
Mayor Michael Wiles is absent with prior notice. Also present is City Manager Robert S. Hoffman and CFO Michael Kaufman.
Okay, before we begin our session, City Manager Robert Hoffman has something to say.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight is our second budget workshop for the 2023 budget. We will be hearing tonight from our fire department, from our Department of Public Works, from the clerk, and from administration and finance. Then next Thursday, March 9th, we will be hearing from other departments, including the construction and code office, the library, OEM, and then we will be discussing engineering and our capital budget, or also known as our capital budget plan, which will be going out 10 years. So tonight we will be discussing the fire department, and that's our lead off for tonight. How you wish to proceed, it's your call right now, Council President.
Thank you very much. Yancy, is Fire Chief Jeff Kaplan here?
Yes, he is. I'll promote him right now.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone?
Great. Welcome to the budget hearing, and we're all looking forward to hearing from you. So the floor is yours.
I'll just give a brief, quick summary, if I could.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Absolutely, yep.
Michael.
So last year we budgeted $6.4 million. This year for salary and wages, this year we're budgeting almost $6.8 million, but we're reducing that by $257,000 due to the SAFER grant that the chief got for the city. So that total is $6,540,000, which is an increase of $138,000, which is 2.21%. Overtime, last year's budget was 1.1 million. This year it's 1,180,000, which is an increase of 80,000, but we spent $1,462,000 last year. So it was a lot more than what we budgeted. Other expenses went from $360,000 to $367,000. So that's only $7,000 increase.
And then, Michael, if you can verify this, but a portion of that overtime expense had to do with our firefighters working in fire prevention for an extended period of time. So we've looked at that. We've looked at that, and we've made some hires that will help offset some of that overtime in 2023.
Okay, can we now proceed with Chief Kaplan?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I don't know if this is going to get messed up. I too am technically challenged. Yancy, I'm going to use a PowerPoint. Do I need to be the moderator to do that and share the screen? I know we messed that up last year.
Yancy, you're muted.
Sorry. Yes, I'm going to make you host, but then you have to make me host back when you're done.
Yeah, I think I lost everyone last year doing that. So
Oh, don't do that.
that would be bad.
Okay, you're now the host.
Okay, so let's see if we can make this happen here.
Share screen at the bottom.
Can everyone see that?
No.
Oh, there we go.
Ah,
There we are.
yes.
There we go. Oh, too far. Okay, here we go. So here's our year in review. For 2022, we did 2,334 calls. This is just an overview of all the calls that we did. We responded to 269 structural fires. Structural fires are, in addition to house fires, that's also cooking fires, smaller structural fires. Structural fires aren't necessarily the fires that we think of fires coming out of out the windows or through the roof, but lots of things are coded as structural fires. But anytime there's a physical fire in a home or building, we classify them as structural fires. So 269 fires last year. We had 3 second alarms. We had 85 company recalls. Anytime that the fire companies are committed to a scene, committed to some kind of incident where the fire companies are tied up for any extended period of time and manpower is not able to respond, we put on what is known as a company recall, where off-duty personnel are brought back in off-duty on overtime and are brought to headquarters, which triggers a recall 85 times last year. That could be when we respond to mutual aid to another community. That could be something like a severe motor vehicle accident like we had today on Grand Avenue, which brought a telephone pole down and the companies were there for over an hour. That could be a car fire, a variety of different emergencies, but 85 times last year, a company recall was necessary because the companies were tied up for an extended period of time and weren't able to respond somewhere else in the city. And then we had 17 platoon recalls, which is a pretty serious incident where all of the fire companies are tied up, all three pieces of apparatus. That's generally, it could be a fire that's not necessary to call for a second alarm, but all of our apparatus are tied up for an extended period of time. So even though we didn't have that many second alarms last year, we had over 100 serious incidents that required recalls of some nature. Motor vehicle accidents and rescue calls continue to be a very active part of our call volume. There were 333 total motor vehicle accidents. 262 of them were what I'll call a routine motor vehicle accident, and 29 of them requiring an extrication where we had to put the jaws of life to use and cut people out of the cars. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. So we had 915 activated fire alarms. That's over 100 call increase from 2021. I don't have a reason of why such a dramatic jump from last year, but clearly that is the majority of the calls that were going on. That could be smoke from cooking. That could be contractors on the scene from dust. That could be, it could be from a fire actually, but there were 915 of those calls where someone's smoke detector went off in the home or apartment or business that required the fire department to respond. So quite a bit of the calls that were going on are fire alarms. We always, we always hope that it's a false alarm, but if an alarm is working the way it should be intended, it's alerting an occupant that there is some kind of emergency in the home and hopefully saving someone's life. That's the intended use of a fire alarm. So it's good that people have the alarms. It's hopefully providing some kind of early warning to an occupant. 377 hazardous conditions, whether it be wires down, gas leaks, CO calls, and lately, because of the amount of work public service is doing in the community, we're doing a tremendous amount of gas calls, gas leaks, all throughout the community. So I would think that we'll see an increase in volumes for 2023. We do a tremendous amount of service calls, people locked out of their homes, locked out of their cars, people who are suffering water leaks in their homes, where we are, I'll talk about this in a minute, in all hazards fire department, we will help you with whatever your emergency is. And if you have a leaking toilet, a leaking pipe in your ceiling, we will come and try to resolve that situation as best as we can. And we responded to 368 types of those emergencies last year. And then, like I said, mutual aid, we respond quite a bit to the surrounding communities. We requested aid 7 times last year, but we responded out of town 28 times. We help our neighbors, and then in turn, they help us. So we respond to a wide variety of emergencies and service calls. Like I said, we're an all hazards fire department, and I've spoken to a number of you about what that means. We don't respond to just fires. We respond to motor vehicle accidents. We respond to hazardous material spills. We respond to first responder EMS calls. We respond to technical rescue incidents where people are trapped in unusual situations. Our firefighters are trained in a tremendous amount of disciplines to handle any type of emergency. Our goal is that our firefighters will be able to handle any emergency, no matter what they face. That takes a lot of training, a lot of time, but we are pride ourselves on being able to handle any type of hazard that is that we will be faced with. So we are ready to handle any type of emergency we face in the community. Some accomplishments for 2022. The accomplishment that I'm most proud of is that we conducted our first entrance exam in 4 years. A tremendous amount of thought and effort went into the exam with Mr. Hoffman and the Human Resources Department that was going to meet the ordinance that was passed in 2019 so that we would have firefighter candidates that were city residents. That was a diverse group of candidates. And I'm very proud to say that the group that we hired last month, I believe is the most diverse group of firefighters we've hired in a very, very long time. We put so much thought and effort into it. We really wanted to make sure that we got it right, that it was done with a tremendous amount of effort. And I believe we accomplished that task. So I think that's the biggest accomplishment that we did. And not only do we have a great group of candidates, but it will go to lowering the amount of overtime, lowering the amount of fatigue that our current firefighters have, that having an active firefighter list will accomplish a lot of the issues that we're having in the department now with lack of manpower. So it's great that we got that accomplished. We also promoted 4 fire officers during 2022, which is a great accomplishment. We talked about it today at today's promotional ceremony, how it's important that we keep those ranks filled. We took delivery of a capital improvement item of a new breathing air compressor. That compressor was over 20 years old. It was suffering from constant breakdowns, and we were spending a tremendous amount of money just keeping it going. So the new compressor was finally delivered. It does the same thing that the old compressor does, but it's more efficient. It takes up a smaller footprint, and hopefully the repair costs will be non-existent. It's got a warranty, and it's just moving forward with a new piece of equipment. We finally restarted the Junior Fire Academy after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, and it was great to see the kids back in the firehouse. We have a great group of firefighters who are very passionate about training the youth of Englewood, and that's our future. Making sure that the kids in Englewood are involved in the fire department and see that it's an opportunity for them in the future. Our academy instructors, our junior fire academy instructors, took them to Newark Airport, took them to the fire academy, took them to the FDNY fire zone. And it's a great week and everyone really loves it. And that's just one of the many, many activities that we participate in the community to get community engagement. But it was great to finally get that restarted after the long hiatus and getting a sense of normalcy back to the firehouse. And then finally, another piece of capital equipment, we took delivery of 2 fire SUVs, command vehicles. Again, COVID has had such a big impact on all of our lives, but we all have heard about the issues of vehicles and new vehicles. Everything is taking longer to get, and this was no different. These vehicles were ordered actually in 2021, and it took nearly 12 months to get the vehicles. And interestingly enough, we still haven't put them on the road because of parts issues, and we're waiting on a single part to finally put the vehicles in service. So COVID and supply chain issues are having such a long-ranging effect that everything is costing more, taking longer, and just having a trickle-down effect to the fire service. So let's talk a little bit about grants. Me personally, I'm extremely proud of the grant work. This is something that we talked about it again today in our ceremony. Captain Mintz started us on the right road in 2018. I picked up the ball from him right after that, and now we've passed it on to another lieutenant who's taking the mantle from me. So this is what we accomplished last year. We completed advanced vehicle extrication training. We received a grant from FEMA for $150,000. That's one of the pictures from our training. And like I said, we went out the door 333 times last year for motor vehicle accidents. This training is so essential to our department, and we would have never been able to complete this type of training without the FEMA grant. It's expensive to go to training. It costs overtime to go to the training, and the grant paid not only for the training, but for the overtime to send our members to the training. Without the grant, we would never be able to pay for this type of training. It was a 40-hour program. Every member of the department attended, and the training was so technically advanced. I can say without a doubt that we are the best trained firefighters in Bergen County in vehicle extrication. There's no one even close to us with this type of training right now. And in addition, we had surplus funds from the grant, and now we're buying new equipment for our rescue truck because we had surplus funds. So we really had a huge windfall with the extrication grant. We were awarded recently, it's a 2022 grant, an additional $170,000 again from FEMA to do driver training. And actually we did our first class through the grant on Monday, and we did a 4-hour training class at the Crown Plaza. All our members attended. And again, it's training that we wouldn't be able to obtain otherwise because the grant is paying for the overtime to have our members attend. So we've always suffered from motor vehicle accidents, and the answer to improving our safety, our liability is through training. And the way that we'll bring down our liability with accidents and better driver training is through the grant and making sure that our young drivers have the best training possible. The biggest surprise of last year was our SAFER grant. And I really didn't think that we were going to get this grant, but we were awarded $1.8 million to fund 6 new firefighters. And because of the American Rescue Plan, the government changed the funding formula for SAFER last year and made SAFER fund 100% of the firefighter salaries. In the past, it was a different formula. The first 2 years would be 70% funding, and then the last year was 30% of the funding. This particular grant is 100% funding for 3 years. So 6 of the 7 firefighters that we just hired are completely funded by the federal government. I mean, that's such a win for our taxpayers in Englewood. I can't stress it enough. Michael said how much money it's saving, and it's just a great win for the Englewood taxpayers that 6 of the firefighters are completely funded for the first 3 years. So I'm very proud of that. We won $42,000 from Division of Community Affairs through American Rescue Fund money to fund new personal protective equipment, which will actually fund the personal protective equipment for the 7 new firefighters. So again, free money for us and for the new firefighters. And then finally, we were awarded $12,000 for lithium-ion battery training. And that's all over the news. That's all you hear is the dangers of lithium-ion batteries, e-scooters and cell phone batteries all catching on fires. It's killing a lot of people in New York City, and Englewood is not immune to that. We've had small fires in Englewood, and I see that increasing every year as more and more batteries are brought into the city. And so we're going to have cutting edge training for our members because of that grant. So in 2023, we've applied for $200,000 for flood rescue training. We applied for a $95,000 regional training grant for the training trailer. And then we finally just applied last week for a $12,000 compressed natural gas training that's similar to the lithium battery training. So we really, really hit it hard with the grants. It's the lifeblood of our fire department right now to bring top-notch training to keep our members safe. So here's just a couple of pictures of our training. Like I said, fires are down, but training is up. The top picture is all of one of the platoons at the Bergenfield Fire Training Center. We're mandated to do continuing education with live fire once a year. So these are the guys at the training center. Below was a free class that we attended in our firehouse with natural gas training. It was a very eye-opening experience. The instructor actually experienced a full house explosion due to a gas leak, and he shared his experience and the dangers of natural gas. And on the right was a very interesting class, and something that I'm very attuned to was active shooter training. And I think that we need to be very well prepared for that, especially in the city of Englewood. Between the schools and the houses of worship, it's something that I think that we need to be very prepared for. And the fire department, being an all hazards fire department, has to make sure that our firefighters and our first responders are prepared for this unfortunate incident. I pray that we never have to respond to something like that, but if we do, we'll be prepared. We received free equipment from the Bergen County with ballistic protective equipment, and we sent our firefighters to 2 training sessions this year. One was at the American Dream Mall, and one was at the Bergen County Fire Academy, to ensure that our firefighters will be ready to respond, to be in the role of what they call the Rescue Task Force. And that means that our firefighters will be able to treat and remove injured victims in the event of an active shooter incident. So we are on the cutting edge of all of these different types of emergencies. So like I said before, community involvement. The picture on the left is the Junior Fire Academy. The picture on the right is one of the many community events that we participated during the year. I think it's great that we're out in the community. We're pushing a lot of fire prevention material, pushing the Good Morning Call programs, all different events that are throughout the year. We're also participating in a lot of charitable events, food drives, and the toy drive, which is great. The toy drive is up to over 500 families in town now, and it's really great so that we're doing a different aspect of our involvement in the community. Yes, we fight fires. Yes, we're helping people, but this is just another way that we're helping people in the community and a different way that we're interacting with the public. So it's great to see that. So let's talk a little bit about staffing and manpower. The current staffing is at 53 firefighters and officers, 18 officers, 35 firefighters. The department has an authorized strength of 59 members, making us still 6 firefighters short. In the last 3 years, 22 members have retired, but we've only had 17 been hired. So there's still a deficit there. The hiring of 7 firefighters is great, and it's really closed the gap of where we've been. But ultimately, because we're still short, there are less people to respond to emergencies. There's less people to respond to recalls. And we talked about how many recalls there are. And ultimately, the last 3 years have really fatigued our members. The overtime is at the highest levels ever. And like Michael said, we spent $1.4 million in overtime last year. And that's because of staffing shortages. We just don't have the manpower to fill out the rosters on a daily basis. Especially during the busy summer months when people are on vacation, there is overtime every single day, and there's not enough manpower to fill out the ranks. There were several days this year that we almost couldn't fill out the minimum amount of manpower needed. There were simply not enough people. The 7 new firefighters will definitely help, and it will definitely go a long way, but we still are falling short of what the authorized staffing is. So we need to really focus on completing out the table of organization so that we never have to worry that we don't have enough people. It's putting our firefighters at risk, but ultimately it's putting the citizens at risk. It's playing roulette, and we can't do that to ourselves. There are currently 9 members eligible to retire immediately, and there's another 5 who can retire in the next 3 years. So even though we're hiring, we're always at a deficit. And again, that's a problem. So we can continue to hire to fill up the existing shortfall, but with 9 members eligible to retire, there's a lot more people that we still need to hire. It's great that we finally have an active hiring list. So at least we have a great pool of candidates to hire from. And Mr. Hoffman and I have, I guess, agreed to or decided that we'll hire an additional 2 firefighters mid-year, and we've already started the planning process to pull in 2 more candidates off our hiring list during the mid-year process. So we'll actually be at 55 by mid-year. Again, a little bit more on staffing and manpower. The SAFER grant is fully funded firefighters for 3 years. And I said this last year, and I'll say it again, I'd like to set a goal for 4 additional firefighters per year for the next 2 years. If we set 4 firefighters for 2023, that would bring us to full staffing at 59. And then the following year, an additional 4 firefighters, and that would bring us to 63. 63 would be the highest amount of firefighters the city has ever had. But with all the development, with all the construction, the population continues to increase. I think that's a prudent number to be at. We require more firefighters to do the job. It's these gigantic buildings that are manpower intensive. It is impossible to do the firefighting job in these massive buildings. Think about how many people live in these buildings. I can't search a building with 6 firefighters. It is physically impossible. I can't stretch a hose in a building this size. It is physically impossible. We just simply need more personnel. And yes, we do call mutual aid, but the mutual aid is 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away. In the first 10 minutes of a fire, where lives are at risk and lives are at stake, we need people on the scene immediately. And 6 or 7 firefighters simply isn't enough to conduct life-saving operations. So in the next few years, we will really need to set the goal of increasing staffing per shift a few more members. I know it's expensive. I know it's a lot to ask, but over the next few years, we really need to consider boosting the staffing levels up a little bit more. The next thing, and again, we talked about it last year, is apparatus. Apparatus continues to plague the city. We have 2 new fire trucks on order, but like I said with the SUVs, the apparatus industry is a changing industry, and it's very, very volatile now. What we thought was a fire truck that was going to be delivered already is now pushed back until late 2023, and the second fire truck is probably not going to be seen until 2024. And because of that, the maintenance needs are really hurting the fire department very severely. And so just real quick, if you look at the picture, the truck in the far back is the Mawa loaner engine that we're using. It's from 1994. The truck in the middle is our ladder truck, which is the primary ladder truck right now. It's from 1995. And the truck closest to you, the green truck, is a loaner engine, which is also from the 90s. This is what's protecting the city of Englewood, trucks that are nearing 30 years old. The trucks that we're relying on that are owned by Englewood, Rescue 1 is 21 years old. Truck 1, which is right now out of service, is 17 years old. And Engine 2, which is the primary engine for the city right now, is 15 years old. The National Fire Protection Agency says that frontline fire trucks should be replaced after 15 years. So we're exceeding that standard. We need to have a planned replacement program for the apparatus. And the capital program doesn't align with those needs. We have fire trucks that are being replaced far beyond the 15-year life expectancy. We are not like the towns that surround us. A town like Tenafly or Cresskill or Englewood Cliffs does a quarter of the amount of calls that Englewood does, and our fire trucks do not hold up as long as another town similar to us. And so what we suggested last year, and we didn't heed those calls, is coming up with a sinking fund. And basically what that is let's put money away every year, $250,000 a year, towards apparatus replacement. A new ladder truck is over $2 million. And when that truck needs to be replaced, we're all going to, be concerned over the price tag of it. But if we put a little bit of money away every year, that pain won't be as bad because we'll have a nice nest egg put away. We just can't keep relying on the generosity of other towns. We need to have Englewood fire trucks, and that's what we really need to shoot for. So yes, the new fire trucks will get here, hopefully in the next year, and it will ease the pain, but we need to look long-term and make sure that the city of Englewood and the residents of Englewood can depend on our own fire trucks. It's really important. Just quick on capital expenditures. Every year we request turnout gear replacement. The personal protective equipment is by far the most important piece of equipment that I can supply to our firefighters. We've done an excellent job of making sure that our firefighters have the best possible protective gear. The Division of Community Affairs grant is a big help. And I was just told yesterday that the governor has put in more money to do the same thing this year. So I think that we'll be in great shape between capital money and the grant money, if we receive that grant again, to be able to purchase top-notch gear for our firefighters. Mr. Hoffman and I talked about doing some rescue truck upgrades. While I don't think that we should replace the rescue truck yet, some small upgrades to it will extend the life of the truck and keep it going for a few more years until we can find the money to replace it 6 or 7 years down the road. It doesn't have that many miles on it. We don't use it that often. So some small upgrades to it, I think, will go a long way to making it serviceable until it's time to replace it. I put radio upgrades here. One of the capital ordinance that we passed in early February actually covers this already, but radios are, again, it's an evolving issue, I guess is the right way to put it. But radios, just like every other piece of technology, is changing rapidly. And I want to make sure that our radio communications are able to keep up with the changing technology. Radios are changing to a digital system, and many of the communities around us, including Leonia, which we respond to regularly, and Tenafly, which we respond to regularly, and Fort Lee, which we respond to regularly, have all gone to a digital system, much like our cell phones. and we do not have the ability to communicate with them. So this is just a software upgrade to our existing radios that will give them the ability to talk on their digital systems. And eventually, I think that Englewood will probably go digital as well, but we will have the ability to upgrade our existing infrastructure so that we can talk on the digital systems. Our fire prevention vehicles are over 12 years old, and before we have catastrophic breakdowns, I think it's prudent that we start to replace them one by one. Mr. Hoffman and I talked about having PSA&G possibly replace one by one with grants, so we're going to look into that this year. One of the things I think is really important, we've had 2 major flooding events within the last year and a half. And the picture that I have posted is a high water vehicle from Carteret. This is a converted military vehicle made into a rescue truck. And you can see that it doesn't look anything like a military vehicle anymore, which I think is really important, but it is equipped to go through up to 4 feet of water, and it can go into neighborhoods and pull people out of the flooded neighborhoods. And I think that this is something important that the fire department can partner with the police department on, and we can effect rescues in the neighborhoods that are consistently flooding. And both during Hurricane Ida and the flash storm in July, we were pulling dozens and dozens of people out of neighborhoods that were in stuck cars, stuck in homes, stuck businesses. And we need to have the ability to rapidly deploy to these neighborhoods and bring people to safety. And I think the high water truck is a great tool to do that without putting our rescuers at risk, and quickly deploying and getting people out of the neighborhoods with a small amount of manpower and quickly deploy it. I also think that it could be used during snow emergencies, although we haven't had any snow this year, but they're, not too distant memory, we've had major snowstorms with, 2.5 feet of snow. The vehicle could also be used during those type of emergencies. And so for a small amount of money, we could deploy a vehicle like this throughout the community and make sure that we can reach any part of the community during a flooding event. I think it's really important that we have this type of vehicle with increased flooding events in town. And then finally, we love our firehouse and we're thankful for our firehouse, but there are some needs to do some upgrades. There are some parts of the firehouse that are showing its age already. And before it really starts to fall apart, we want to make sure that we're keeping its upkeep and making sure that it stays beautiful looking. And we passed a capital ordinance not that long ago to replace the garage doors already. We passed a resolution recently to have it painted. And there's a couple other things that we want to make sure that we keep the building up, up to grade, up to snuff, so that it never falls into disrepair. So Mr. Hoffman and I have talked about getting a little bit of capital funding to make sure that the firehouse does not fall into disrepair, and we keep it, as wonderful as it was the day that it opened the doors. So some goals for 2023. Obviously, we hope that the apparatus comes this year and not next. We talked about hiring the additional firefighters. We tried to do an open house last year and we just couldn't pull it off. So our goal is to actually do the open house during Fire Prevention Week in October. A smoke detector giveaway program. We have funds through fire prevention penalty funds. So we have the funds to do that, and we have smoke detectors on hand, but we would like to be able to give smoke detectors away to people in need in the community. The smoke detector is by far the easiest and most efficient way of preventing loss of life in a fire. And so giving them away to people in the community is a great tool. We already put smoke detectors up in people's homes. When we go to a call and we find that people do not have a smoke detector, we are putting smoke detectors up now. But I think that at the open house and at the community events, if we had a box of smoke detectors to give away to the residents, that would be just a win for us and a win for the residents. So we're going to look to increase that in 2023. We say this every year, and we still haven't figured out why more people are not taking advantage of it. But the Chief Morgan Good Morning Call program is important for senior citizens in town. We only have 5 people who are participating in it, and it's not for lack of trying. We included information about it in this year's calendar. We need to increase its participation. It's a great program. It's been in place for as long as I've been a firefighter in Englewood, and we would love more people to take advantage of it great program that it is. And like I just said, preparedness for weather-related emergencies and some of the capital funding, excuse me, that we just passed includes some pumps and generators, but we really want to beef up our preparedness for the weather-related emergencies. And then finally, the strategic plan, we talked about this a little bit, but we want to have a roadmap of where the department is going. We are setting ourselves up with great training, with great personnel, with great equipment, but we need a roadmap of where the department's going for the next 5 years so that the administration, the council, and most importantly, our firefighters know where we're going, that we have a succession plan, and we have an idea of where the department needs to be and where it needs to go. And last but not least, this is Mr. Hoffman and I's project that we've been working on for a little while. We were gifted Englewood's first motorized piece of apparatus is a 1911 American LaFrance pumper. It was purchased back in the 50s by a Tenafly firefighter, and he stored it in his garage in Tenafly for decades. And he passed away a few years ago. And one of his last wishes was that Englewood took back possession of it, and it's sitting in a container in the back of fire headquarters. But Mr. Hoffman and I have talked about partnering with trade schools, partnering with local businesses to try to restore it and get it back up and running. We've talked about creating a 501(c) to raise funds to restore it. But the goal is to, restore it back to its former greatness. Put it on display outside of fire headquarters in some kind of glass atrium. But it's a really special part of Englewood history that we should all be proud of. And during the Memorial Day parade and the Juneteenth parade and any other special event, in the city, that we can bring it out and we can proudly display the history of Englewood. It's a really special piece, and we're hoping to partner with different people so that we can restore it. Mr. Hoffman would like to put it on a trailer and have it in the parade this year, so people can at least see what we have and what kind of special piece we have, and at least maybe spark some interest in it. So that's a goal, not only for 2023, but and beyond. But that's something that we're working on, and we wanted to share that with you. For this year, at least that's one of the goals. And that's all I have for you. And I would love to hear some questions from you. And I guess
thank you.
We can
Yeah,
stop.
I just wanted to thank you so much for this terrific presentation. I hope it's something that should be seen by some of the groups in town. I will talk to you offline, about maybe presenting it because it's really a special presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank
now,
you.
who would like to open up the questioning? Does anyone have it? Because I have a few questions. I could start. Okay, I have 3 or 4 questions. They're all short. One of them is just to ask you, we do we correct leaking toilets. We deal with lockouts, and I never knew that before. Since when has the fire department been doing this?
As long as I've been with the fire department, those are things that we do handle. There are lockouts that can be considered hazardous conditions.
Okay.
If people leave food on the stove while they've locked themselves out of their home, we will find preferably a non-destructive way to get back into their home, whether it be finding an open window, or we can, force our way in without causing damage, and we'll make sure that it's the hazard is eliminated. We'll also often have people who lock their keys in their cars and the cars are running, so it's considered a lockout with a hazard. And our firefighters are pretty adept at getting into cars without causing damage. But it's a service that we provide to the residents, and people are certainly appreciative of us.
Listen,
doing
I think I'm just surprised that the leaking toilet wouldn't require a plumber.
And the way that I'll pitch it to you is that if we can get there and we can secure the water and reduce the amount of damage to someone's home before the plumber can get there, people are always appreciative of the fact that we'll we'll reduce the damage or we'll eliminate that damage or make it right until the plumber can get there. And so sometimes that's, certainly appreciated, when the toilet's overflowing at 3 a.m. and they don't know what to do, call the fire department, and we're always there to solve the problem for the resident.
Okay. Okay. Well, I learned something. Do we sell our obsolete trucks and equipment? Is there any attempt?
So that's a great question. So we've already reached out to a used fire apparatus broker regarding the truck that is being replaced. The trucks do not hold their value very well, but we will sell the truck when it is being replaced, when it's ready to finally go off to its next life. And so the answer is yes. I would say, being that the truck will be 28 years old when it's said and done, probably the value between $30,000 and $50,000. But it's $30,000 and $50,000 that goes back into the budget. So yes, it does have a numeric value to us. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the things that happens is we do follow the public contracts law, so we will put it out for auction, and then doing an electronic auction with a fire truck has national reach. So the value that the city will receive is going to be greater than just conducting an auction in the parking lot.
Has any manufacturer of these very expensive vehicles ever voluntarily donated anything to any local departments that you're aware of? Have they been approached?
As far as donating, the answer would be no. So the fire apparatus industry is, I'll use the word unbelievable right now. The truck that we bought in 2018 was, I believe, Michael would have maybe know the exact number, but around $630,000. The same exact truck that we're buying now is $750,000. And if we were to cut a purchase order for it today, a year later, I would tell you that it would be closer to $1 million. And the trucks are increasing in cost 5 and 10% every month. And they're changing the price literally under the municipality's nose. There have been issues of manufacturers changing the price after contracts have been signed and holding the trucks ransom to the municipalities and saying, if you don't pay up, you won't get your truck at the end. And the trucks are mid-construction, and saying the cost of the truck has increased during production due to material cost increases and motor cost increases. And they're holding the trucks literally ransom. Even in Bergen County, I know of municipalities that were asked to cough up $100,000 or more to get their truck off the production line. And so that is become a normal event in the fire industry. Even today, I was contacted by a vendor who said, if we don't sign a contract today, there was a 15% cost increase on turnout gear, personal protective equipment, that February 28th was the cutoff. And if we didn't have it done by March 1st, we would have faced a 15% cost increase, which equated to a $15,000 cost increase. I mean, that's how quickly things are changing in the industry, like overnight. So the industry is changing extremely fast, and it's being put on the back of the municipality and the budget of the municipality. So it's very difficult to keep up.
Okay, my last question, and I'm sure others are going to. Your sinking fund, do the monies that are collected for fines and or other services that you perform? I don't know how many the townspeople are charged for, but certainly the fines for lack of protection in the house, or do those funds go into this? Could those funds be directed into your sinking fund?
The answer is yes and no. There are two penalty accounts. Michael knows the exact name of the accounts, but one can be used for general fire department operations, right, Michael? That's correct. And one can only be used for fire prevention activities. So there are very stringent uses of what the funds can be used for.
Okay.
The one for fire prevention only activities, I don't know if we want to disclose the amount, the amount, but it's not a whole lot of money, but we do draw from that account from time to time for those fire prevention activities. And then I do draw from that account from time to time for fire department uses, for training, for equipment. But we do use that money, as I feel appropriate, because it is another source of revenue for the department. Is it enough to fund a fire truck? No, we're not even remotely close, but it is another source of revenue. And as we increased the fees earlier this year, theoretically, that fund should grow and could potentially fund other things. For example, the fire prevention only account could potentially fund the vehicles that we need because there is enough money in that account to fund vehicles. So it is another source of revenue that we could tap into.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
it's not going to cover the cost of apparatus. And when we talk about capital next week, we're going to be talking about, what how we can look at the next two purchases that are projected for the fire department and how we should fund them so that we don't have a big hit, in a couple of years in the future.
Thank you.
One account has 69,000, the other one has 18,000. So
Okay. Does anyone, by the way, Mr. Cobb has joined the meeting. Is there anyone else that has questions for Chief Kaplan? Nobody? Kevin, please go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, Chief. Thank you for your beautiful presentation. We appreciate it. Very, very informative. I just have a few questions and maybe one comment or statement. It seems like we're at an all-time high with the overtime. And it's 180,000 projected for this year, I believe it was. Is any of that cost going towards the officers? And if so, what percentage of the overtime of the almost 1.1 million of the overtime? Is any of that going towards the towards the officers? Because I understand we've changed the organizational chart, so we'll have more officers on each rig. So I think that part of the organization chart is fulfilled, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just curious to find out the overtime of the officers.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, but it's more complicated than just a simple yes. So overtime is broken down into many different categories. So to answer the first part of your question, overtime is always needed to fulfill staffing shortages. So a staffing shortage could be because of lack of firefighters, and staffing shortages can be because of lack of fire officers. So if we have a lack of fire officers for a particular shift due to vacation or sick or both, there would be a staffing shortage and are required to fill overtime to fulfill an officer rank for that day. So the
What's minimum manning?
Minimum manning for officers now is 3.
So it's 3 and 6?
Correct. And then the second part of your question, for a recall, there would always be an officer recalled for whether it's a company recall, a platoon recall, or obviously a second alarm. There would always be overtime required for officers during a recall. So the second part of your question, yes, officer overtime would be required during a recall as well. So yes, for staffing shortages, and also yes, for recalls, officers would be required to be recalled back and overtime would be required. So yes, for both.
So when we're talking about a group recall, you're talking about you're hoping for or requiring for at minimum 3 and 9. I know sometimes it doesn't work out that way as far as recalls, but
in an effort to reduce the amount of overtime, we cut back platoon recalls to only a specific specific instances and tried to utilize a company recall, which is only 1 officer and 3 firefighters.
Okay,
And that's where, and like the number showed, we did, I think the number was like 83 or 85 times last year, where the platoon recalls, which would be 3 officers and the 9 firefighters, was only 17 times, or something similar to that. So we're trying to cut the overtime down as best as possible by utilizing the company recall, which requires less people.
Okay,
and
that-
them often.
that is a good chart or a good wheel to use. Absolutely. Would you consider that most of the overtime is created by recalls or shortages?
Shortages. And
Shortages on a daily platoon.
correct.
Wow. I thought we were getting away from that. That's why we got more officers.
Well, the shortage, and I don't have a breakdown of officers versus firefighters, but overall last year, the by far the bulk of the overtime was due to staffing shortages.
Wow.
And just a rough number, staffing shortages last year were nearly $767,000. So that's just staffing
What?
shortages. So that's just staffing shortages. That's before recall. Company recalls were $130,000 in company recalls. So the bulk of the overtime last year was due to staffing shortages. So when I told you that the lack of manpower, we're 1 full platoon down before we hired the 7 firefighters. So we're working with only 3 platoons worth of people.
No, I understand that. And we changed the organizational chart to include another officer, which took away 3 or 4 people on the line. I understand that part. And my other concern is that our hope would be that we'll be taking somebody else off the line as well, because we're looking at hopefully sooner or later, a deputy chief. But my concern is that this overtime appears to be at an all-time high. I just don't see how we get there. I know we're at a shortage, almost about a platoon, but there was a time that it wasn't that high. I don't know if it's because of the call. I can't put my finger on why we're having that tremendous amount of shortages.
Yeah.
And so my other question was, what was it? Well, one of the great things was, obviously, I'm happy to see the fire safety camp back. Kudos to you guys. That was near and dear to my heart when God allowed me to first start that. So that's always a great thing to give back. And as far as the recruiting, how are we handling that? Because it doesn't appear to be a real budget line. And you have a community. I don't want to give Lieutenant Brown the wrong name of maybe community affairs. I'm not sure what his title is. Can you clear that up?
Lieutenant Brown is our community outreach officer, and so he is responsible for getting all of the community events handled, covered. When community events requests are brought to the fire department, he makes sure that they're covered, staffed, whatever requests are needed. He makes sure that they are staffed appropriately. If there are any special requests, he handles them. He does an excellent job. He plans the summer camp. He plans the open house. He's extremely passionate about it. He puts a lot of his own time into it. I think that he's the perfect person to do it. And he has motivated a cadre of, like I said, counselors to assist him with that project. He's just a great person to do it. He's in touch with the community, in touch with the youth, and I can't think of a better person to do that. As far as recruitment, I don't want to use the word regret. But one of the things that when we do it again, when we do the next test, I think that the only bad thing about our test this year was that, or last year rather, was that we didn't have enough time. And I would have loved to have seen a little bit more time to focus more on the recruitment. And I'll give a tremendous amount of credit to our firefighters to doing recruitment in the amount of time that we had. Specifically, Teron Anderson, who I don't want to say single-handedly because everyone else, so a lot of other people participated in the project, but Teron really shined with that project, making TikTok videos and getting out in the community to spread the word, and lots of other people did as well, whether it was through social media or word of mouth or going to the churches. I know Lieutenant Hoyle went to the churches and spread the word, but we had a very tight timeline and there was only so much recruitment that could be done in that compressed time. And I think that if we had more time, we could have done a better job getting the word out. So I think that that's my only, when we do it again, we need more time so that we can spread the word better. But with the amount of time that we were given, I'm very proud of the job that we did getting that word out within the community. And I can only imagine how well we'll do when we're given more time. With that being said, I think we put an article in the newspaper, but kids today don't read the newspaper. And so I think we had to adapt to changing social habits to make sure that we were, getting to the community youth and getting to the people that we were trying to reach in an appropriate way that was going to get the message out. And so when we go back and we relook at how we did this, we have to identify the best methods possible. But we had the banner up over the avenue. We had a sign at Liberty, in front of Liberty School at the monument. I think that we tried to do the best we could with the compressed timeline we had, and all of that money it wasn't necessarily a line item that came out of specialized services out of the budget. Whatever costs were associated with the test, that was the line item that it came out of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, there was a compressed timeline, but the goal was that we knew that there was going to be a fire academy training class, and the goal was to get our recruits in there, and we worked back from that. But we're also looking forward. So we have a meeting coming up just to do a recap of what we need to do better. What did we learn from the process, and what's a realistic timeline so that we can work back from the academy classes starting in 2024. But the chief is right. There was a compressed timeline, but there was a compressed timeline because we wanted to get members into the class, which was starting in February. So it was Apollo 13. It was failure is not an option. So we accomplished a lot, and kudos to the fire department for being able to do that. So
yeah, that's great, and I'm glad to hear that you guys realize that it was a compressed time. So moving forward, we don't have to look at this particular upcoming testing situation in the same manner. That not only you guys can have more time to prepare, but the community at large can have more time to prepare for the test and be informed of the test. And those avenues are through the churches, through multimedia, through speaking at the schools, since a large number are graduating each year, and we've lowered the age limit so that it can be an active event 5-6 months prior. And it's great for firefighters and fire officers and the chief to actively seek and volunteer their time to get the word out. But it's equally as important that as a department, as a city, that we have a legitimate budget line for recruiting, so we may recruit what we have built for our Englewood residents and give them the opportunity that they need. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Does anyone else have a question or a comment? for Chief Kaplan. Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. Chief, I just want to tell you that that was the most professional, relevant, and comprehensive presentation, and I appreciate that. I have one question for you. When you talk about hiring, that you'd like to hire four firefighters this year in 2023, is there still grant money available to cover those salaries?
We always, we apply for the federal grants every year. It's an extremely competitive grant process. In fact, I was just sent a number 2 days ago. There's $350 million in grant money available, but over $3 trillion in requests, if that makes sense. So there's only a finite amount of money available, but hundreds of thousands of departments are applying. And it's like I said before, I was shocked that we were awarded 2 grants last year. I'd like to say that we've gotten, pretty good at it and successful at it. We've gotten some kind of award every year, and we'll continue to apply. We win some, we lose some. But yeah, we will always continue to apply and seek out the best opportunity for us and try to make the best for our taxpayers. So answer is yes, we'll always continue to apply.
Thank you, Lisa. Before we close this, Mayor Wilds has joined the meeting. Charles, please.
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Judith.
Chief, I have several questions. And the first question I pose, you've been coming to budget hearing meetings for a little while now, right? And and this is getting back to apparatus. I've posed this question when I first got on the council about to your predecessor to say, put something together and age out your vehicles. So that way you're kind of putting them in the queue to say, okay, if they come to this age, now we got to start to react as a city to replace these vehicles. So my question there is, have you done such?
Yeah, me and Mr. Hoffman have plotted out the next 10 years. So we have a pretty good idea of what an appropriate replacement cycle is for the apparatus. That's not, not unreasonable. It takes into the taxpayer consideration, but it's just basically, I don't want to use the wrong word here, but a notice to the council that there are some pretty big expenditures coming down the road over the next 6 or 7 years, that I don't want it to be a shock that in 2 years another fire truck's coming, and in 3 years after that another fire truck is coming, so that we can get back onto a better replacement cycle, that we won't be facing the crisis that we've had over the last, like you said, the last couple of years. We've talked about this, and we can get on a better footing here, so that we're not spending so much money on maintenance, because we are spending way too much money on maintenance, and we can get this back under control. I think we're real close to getting it under control once the 2 new trucks are here, and we'll be in a lot better shape. Just, we got to get these 2 new trucks here, and then I think we'll be in a way better spot here.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it is part of, and I know it could be spoken to at the Capitol part of the meeting next week on the 9th. But I think that these kind of plans should be memorialized where everybody on the council understands what it means. And we got to know what we're going to replace next, or what the intentions are, and have a goal line to say, we got 2 years with this piece of equipment. And it's just not only trucks. This has to be whatever type of equipment that you use as we recycle this equipment, so nothing should be out of age, right? It shouldn't be where it's
Agreed.
So bad that it poses a risk to the individuals working. But
yeah, agreed.
But you got to remember, there are other departments as well. And I've said this with other departments as well, with vehicles and all this, because it doesn't become fair to the taxpayer when we rush. And I'm not just talking about you. when we rush and say, we're going to buy all this stuff, because somebody's got to pay these bills, right? It's always easier if we collectively have a plan, because then you're going to say, well, listen, because I also know, and I'll pivot there, about the overtime, right? The overtime should be capped. And then anything over the cap, what should happen is city manager and the council has to approve it. That way we'll get the discipline back in it. And you're right, your overtime has never been 1.4 million or whatever it is. The police department has been up there. But my expectations are, and we've always been told this, and I don't necessarily always agree with it, is that we're hiring these people, our overtime goes down. But it appears to be that, where's the break even point? Or because overtime will be there, because you even said, people, vacation, sick time and all that. So what's the balance? What's the delta there that we got to find out, right? So there's a number that you got to have. And the delta, it says, if we have this number, no matter if people get sick or they go on vacation or whatever, we're not going to accumulate this overtime. You know what I mean? Because that's the number. I all that good stuff you do. I know all the good stuff you do. I want to talk about the numbers, because the numbers are where we got to go to the people and say, here's going to be your tax increase, or here's going to be what's going on. I've told you, I support you getting more fire detectors, and all that kind of smoke detectors, right? And I said, I think that's a great idea. And I think that you should advertise that you do that. Remember, we talked about being in the calendar more. We talked about that. I talked about the JP Morgan Good Morning, and I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to do the outreach with that. I'm going to help you with that. We're going to get people signed up on that. That's going to be an initiative that's going to sign up. But for me, give me the numbers. Let's talk about the deltas. Let's talk about what it's going to take to get it where we bang this overtime down to a manageable situation where it's okay. We know, because we're going to always have overtime. That's a fact. We're never going to zero. But when we talk about headcount, and we also know that these new fighters are not going to come online for a little while as well. So that's what you should have said with the overtime, saying until they come online, we shouldn't expect to see a difference. But once they come online, we should see something that brings it down, right?
Agreed.
And every year we should see that, right? So I mean, I think that the planning for every department should be that way. Headcount, goal of headcount. What do we need? What's the delta? What's the impact, right? I need to know what the impact is going to be, because the impact is going to be whatever this budget is going to be, right? So, again, I think it's just important that whatever it is for me, because that big ticket is the apparatus, right? The engines, the ladders, those are big ticket items. So we need to plan. We know we're getting a new ladder, and at the time we bought that ladder, it was $1.2 million, right? 1.2. Now it's $2 million in about 2.5 years, right? And we know how long it takes. Okay, fair. That's the cost of doing business, and I understand that. And I'm not, but I think that we need to know that the next step is, in a year and a half, we may have to order another engine. What is that going to cost us, and how do we get there? And do we put part? So, because when we bought the ladder, and this, we allocated part in 1 year, and then next year we paid the rest of it instead of buying it all at one time. That's the kind of conversation I want to hear. Say, okay, we got an extra 500. Let's put that away for this next whatever it is. And being that it's going to be an engine, maybe we put away 300 or whatever the case, the number is, right? So we're halfway there. So we don't put all the pressure on the year's budget and the next year's budget. So collectively we get it done between two budget cycles. But we know what we've made a commitment to that, because these things cost so much money. I just think that that's the way we should plan it and say, listen, we're going to go half now. Here's what it is. And once we get the other half, this is what we do. So I think some of that kind of planning is valuable to the process, the budget process, and it helps you manage your shop better that way. But I would expect that, we're talking about budget now. I would expect to say, let's see what overtime, the run rate of overtime looks like. Let's be fair to you. August, September, we say, well, this is the run rate of overtime. But everything is based on calls and all that too. That takes into account too. There's the unknown factor. And the more development, the more you're going to be busy. That's just that also takes into account as well. So we have to account for all that as well. And we should do a study. We got about 30,000 people in Englewood, 28, they say by census. How many firefighters should we have per 1,000 people, right? Or whatever the calculation is. We should see where we land there as well. What's the rate? What's the ratio that's used? That's good information to use as well. But again, I think if we put that document together and we memorialize it and as long as you're here, it's okay if it's if it's somewhere else, but we need to pass that kind of practice on to whoever comes behind you in the leadership positions there as well, to understand that this is kind of the guardrails and the framework. If we develop a framework and a practice of how we do things from a budget perspective and how we present it, that would be helpful for those who have to make those kind of decisions in a disciplined manner, that it's been a very thought out process in the long range process as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Cobb. Does anyone else, Ken, please go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chief. That was a fantastic presentation. I'm looking at the table of organization. There are a number of fire personnel with PROB. That means probation.
Correct.
And these are the officers who were sworn in last week?
Correct. The probationary firefighters are the firefighters that we swore in at the council session.
Excuse me, firefighters, yeah.
Correct.
And are these were paid for by the grant?
Six of the 7 are paid by the grant, correct.
So they're paid by the grant and they're on the table of organization?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there an effort to recruit women to the department?
There's always an effort to recruit women. I believe the number was 5 women took the test. Only 1 female passed all sections of the exam, but she wasn't a city resident, so she is not in the top tier of the hiring process.
Okay. All right. And so are there going to be any modifications or efforts to help with the recruitment of women?
I believe that one of the things that we did to try to improve the testing process was that the physical agility portion of the exam was mirrored against the civil service physical agility exam, which we felt was going to lessen the liability for the city because it was a legally defensible physical agility exam. In prior years, okay, we weren't using a firefighter agility exam that was defensible in court or had been legally proven in court. It was just a bunch of different skills thrown together. Part of it was done as a police exam. So we felt that going in the route of the fire exam, run by the state, was the best model. It was pass-fail. Candidates had 5 minutes. I can tell you that the female candidates that didn't pass, just barely didn't pass. They were within just a few seconds. But to lower the standard is not how the state.
Obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, what I talked about with Councilman Wilson, I think that extending the time frame and maybe having the course available to practice would improve outcomes, and that if candidates had an opportunity to practice more, it was the first time we've ever had the course available to practice. I think we had 75 or maybe 80 candidates any candidate could come and practice on the course. We hired the testing company to open up the course and proctor a practice exam prior to the actual exam. So that was the first time that we've ever done that in the history of ever running the exam. I think that if we had more time and either ran multiple sessions or we ran it, at different intervals, that candidates could practice on the course and get better at it, and then perhaps would have better scores, just like practicing for a run, practicing for any kind of sporting event. The more you practice, the better you get at it. Practicing a few days before the actual event, you're only going to be so good at it.
Yeah.
So again, in hindsight, if we had more time, maybe we ran it a week before or 2 weeks before, and you would have a better opportunity to get better at the event. And I think that's one way that we could improve females' chances at.
Or even the test's been out there, and now
they know what
people can train for specific
Sure, they know what to expect. So I think again, the next time around, we'll be better prepared. We'll have more time, and people have a better chance of preparing for it. So again, the compressed timeline didn't necessarily serve us well in that sense.
Okay, well,
No, it served us well as a start, and this is something that we're gonna learn from. But we needed to get our candidates in the fire academy, so we had the opportunity and we took it.
Two more quick questions. We've been talking about the enormous expense of the capital equipment. Is some of the equipment ever leased? Is that ever an option? I know that's always going to be more expensive, but
that's a great question. There are leasing options available. However, a lot of the manufacturers don't recommend it because the lease payments have to come out of your operating budget. And so let's say the $1 million fire truck, you would lease it for a period of 10 years, and then you get a purchasing option at the end. So you would add on $100,000 lease payment to your operating budget per year over the 10 years. So you would have to build that into your operating budget. Is it an option? Yeah, it is an option. And some municipalities take advantage of it. And all of the manufacturers offer a lease purchase option. Many cities do that as a way of purchasing apparatus for less money, quickly. It would be something that we would have to look at, but it is an option.
Yeah, I mean, my personal feeling is it's never the best option, but depending on how you want to manage operating and capital, sometimes it could be the smart way to go in specific circumstances. And my final question is, something completely off the wall. You talked about the keeping our equipment at the highest standard, and of course, I'm always going to be in favor of that. I know there are some other areas in the world where some of our equipment that doesn't meet up our standards is going to be an enormous improvement in their firefighting capabilities. Are there any programs where we can help out, other firefighting units throughout the world that might benefit from our equipment?
There are programs to donate obsolete fire equipment. I would caution, I know that in the past, my predecessor ran afoul doing that. So I would caution doing that without the council's blessing prior to getting involved in that.
Well, that is an option, but there is it's very complicated. It involves, depending on where, no matter where in the world it's going, it has to go through Homeland Security. There are things that have to be done. And several years ago, one of the municipalities I worked for tried to donate an ambulance to a country in Africa, and we just weren't successful in doing it because of the international criteria that we had to follow. It wasn't just Homeland Security, but it was the other country, and the guarantees that they wanted. But there are other areas of the country where our equipment would be very, very valuable. And That's probably where we could look after we look at what are the international rules that are set up by Homeland Security.
Okay, thank you.
You sure?
Ms. Marin?
Yes.
Hi, it's Michael. I'm so sorry, guys, that I missed the first part of the meeting. As I said last night, I was teaching in a law school. Chief, so proud of you and the department that you run and the example that you personally are, having come up from dispatching. And now we have this new ordinance. I heard Councilman Wilson, and I'm so happy to have somebody who served so violently in the fire department to opine on all of the systems in place. Now that we have an ordinance recruiting from Englewood, please, that line item for recruitment, that journey that firefighters may want to take, workforce housing, and making sure that if we want to encourage people from our high school to go into the system, is that something that we, as part of the governing body in Englewood, can help facilitate so that people can afford, so that women can move into Englewood and satisfy the residency requirement? Do you see that something in a long-term plan that we can play a role in?
I think the answer is yes. I think that there are cities throughout the country that have been successful in developing high school programs where, rather than a traditional curriculum in school, they're trained in, first responder programs, whether they're going to EMT school during the day or they're attending, firefighter 1 classes during the day, or some kind of curriculum in high school in lieu of traditional studies, almost like a VOTEC school. And so they're learning the skills that they'll need, in the senior year of high school. Is that a possibility that we partner with, the public school district? Yeah, I think that's something that we could look at. And so you're cultivating, your future talent from within the public school district. I think that's something to look at. And some, cities throughout the country have been successful with that. I think we have to put all cards on the table and look at what's, what's possible for our future.
Yeah, because, you have a lot more to protect as far as an inventory of new development. But when we talk about indigenous housing, affordable housing, there's also workforce housing, and making sure that we pave a way for young firefighters. That the department now is truly intergenerational and on the move up, with a lot of young people ready to take on leadership roles, getting them housing and kind of getting out there and getting the best talent. We hired so many Patterson police officers and other people along the way. We could make Englewood residents, profit from this, from high school or import residents, so long as they're there under the statutory period of time. But think in terms of how the governing body can help you, so that when we all leave, we've created a process where it'll kind of regenerate itself from Englewood stock.
No, agreed. I think there are a lot of opportunities. We just have to, think outside the box a little bit. Things that we just haven't considered in the past. But I think we're all on the same page, and we need to put our heads together.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you for your service.
Mayor. Okay, I am assuming that we've all spoken. So I'd like to thank Chief Kaplan once again for a wonderful presentation. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Don't forget to make me host.
I'm sorry, what?
I have to unhost here. Nancy, you got to walk me through this here.
So you go by my picture, the 3 little dots in the corner.
Yep.
Click on that, and one of them is make host.
There you go. Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Now, Michael Kaufman?
Yes.
Michael, so our next presentation is going to be by the Department of Public Works. Would you like to set that up?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Hoffman sent everybody before the meeting a summary sheet. So I'm going to just summarize that. It takes all the accounts into effect, all like the units. So the budget in 2022 was for salary and wages was 3.9 million. And actually it's the same this year. there were some extra people in some accounts, some less in other, but it actually came out to be even. Overtime, we budgeted $760,000 last year, and we're budgeting $557,000 this year, which is a $200,000 decrease, 26%. And in other expenses, it went up only $7,000 from 2.1 million to a little over 2.1 million, which is 0.36%. So that went up minimally. And it's on page 53 of the budget revenue prep worksheet. Public Works starts over there by roads. That's the first account. So page 53, page number 53.
Okay, is that it, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have, is it Mr. Ed Roy Jenkins? Could you let him in?
He's here.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, hi, Ed Roy.
How you
Sorry,
doing?
you just appeared. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I want to give you an overview on my department. A lot of people think we only collect garbage. You know, there's other things that we do in my department. The number one thing that we're improving on is educating the public on different things that we do, different days that we do it, using my calendar, and you know, having them, if they have any questions, they're more than welcome to call in, and we find it out through us. We also do brush tree removal. That's you know, if people have brush, they're told how to put it out, so we will remove it. We will bring it down as long as it's bundled and tied and it's in the calendar. We also do catch basin cleaning. Also jet sanitary lines, right? That are clogged up. Some of the residents call about, you know, their lines being backed up and things like that. We have a jet truck here that we received a few years ago that helps us with that. We do park and field maintenance, right? To all my parks and fields in the city of Englewood. We also do sign repairs, potholes, filling potholes, tree removal. But on the other side of tree removal, we also do tree planting, which we try to plant. I think in the last 2 years, we planted probably 300 trees in the city of Englewood. That's why right now we are a Tree City USA, one of the providers of a Tree City USA. So we do that. We remove bulk, which is couches, box springs, different things like that. We do that. We also collect metal, white metal. We have sometimes we also have shredding events for individuals that have more than the items. Some items that we don't pick up at curbside, we offer them every quarter to bring those down to my yard, and we would dispose of those for them. Also, the shredding events that we have every quarter. Also, we have a shredding truck here for the resident. Any documents that they want to shred, we take that, and we also shred those documents for them. We also do we also assist engineering and my code enforcement with repairing streets, not only potholes, but also repairs to streets, different areas of where they find sanitary lines that's would collapse. We test with TV lines for residents. When we go in, we TV them to see our lines, not the residents' lines, but our laterals. If we see we have a problem, we repair those we repair those lines. Also, any city properties, abandoned homes or anything like that, we do clean off those properties for as they're reported to us by my code enforcement. We started a new thing this year with the help of Mr. Hoffman of Street Scan. That should help us maintain some of the streets that we have here, also with streets, signs, also some of my aging lines that I have in the city at this time. Also, we do building repairs. What falls underneath that we could do in-house. We try to do most of it in-house here, painting, some plumbing, some electrical work, but we mostly with some of those things we rather have a professional. What we do is searching into probably getting a professional electrician and plumber. If we're probably looking for, that'd be one of the accomplishments of things that we want to do in the future. Also, anything salting, plowing streets during storms. We prep the streets for storms, snowstorms, things like that. Also, like Ida, we also assist police, fire with opening up streets, removing, like it says, same thing, removing trees, emergencies and things like that. We also assist my police and fire with removing those different things to help people. Some other things is cleaning, storm. Well, I'm gonna go to my highlight accomplishments for this year, where we have, if you look at Overpeck Creek here by Forest Avenue, we have removed structure. The DEP has gave us permission to remove structure from some of those creeks, right? Like I say, with my city manager, with the help of him, with the help of the county, we have a long reach that helps us reach out and be able to move some of that structure, along with the excavator that I have here that you guys allowed me to get last year. That also assists us with doing those things. Okay, preparation for projects, with different projects, different capital projects. Me and my department assists with those projects as they come along. Events, we set up for events, as you see, with podiums for Veterans Day, different parades and different things like that. We also do that. Roadside mowing, is ramps, certain ramps that the county do not take care of. My guys take care of those ramps. Sign repairs, we do sign repairs, as well as some curb repairs that we could do. Some curb repairs we can do in-house. Rear yard service, like I said, a few years ago, I came to you guys and we came up with a resolution to also we do rear yard service, not only for garbage, but we do rear yard service for recycle and recycling now for my elderly community that needs help, that can't bring those cans out to the corner or to the curb. We have a rear yard service now. They call in, they provide the documents that we need here. We also go by and pick those things up for them, so they don't have to, stress with those cans about bringing them cans out. Also, we assist with the county with different projects that they have. The county, the state, they just did over the bridge here on Forest Avenue. That was just repaired. They also, with the help of my city manager, I know you guys knew the Forest Avenue train tracks with CSX. We were having big problems with that. We with my city manager pushing, we got that done. We opened up now. Forest Avenue is opened up completely. Now with so we and that helps with my emergency vehicles, my vehicles that go through and different things like that. Organizing different projects also, right? Projects that will help the city in the long run. And that's a little bit of the overscope of what my department does besides just picking up garbage. Okay, it's a whole, that's just a few things that they do. As accomplishments for last year, we finally completed the grants and everything to get my electrical garbage trucks. It was a delay a little bit, but it was a whole lot needed that me, my city manager, and what we did, we wanted to get American-made vehicles. BYD, my guys went to test for those vehicles, and they found they liked the Max because they're the ones have to use those vehicles. So they looked at and they loved the Mac. The BYD had a few glitches that wouldn't have been promising to me. We also looked at some other things, accomplishments, and like I said, the excavator that we got that will help remove structure. Other things like we help with repairing, like I said, potholes and things like that, and other accomplishments of this grants that we're looking to put into place. Vacancies. If you look at my organizational chart, there's a numerous of vacancies there that we're working on filling. If you look at my organizational chart, that by help of my new HR director, my city manager, but kudos to my guys, they're still getting the job done with it, but it's just, just take a little longer, but they're doing the job. Planning for 2023, what we're looking to do, like I said, my electrical vehicles, but we're not only my electrical trucks that we're looking to do, we're also looking to change not only my truck fleet here, but the city's fleet over to electrical vehicles, right? Because if you look what's happening in the world today with emissions and things like that, everybody's moving on to EV vehicles at this time, right? So that's what we're looking to do here in Englewood. I think we're looking to purchase some. I don't know if Miss Simons that was with Recreation, she's looking to purchase a few electrical vans that she's looking to purchase and looking to bring into the fold. And I think those are things that we're looking to do here. Put charging stations in different places for not only our vehicle but for other vehicles for the residents. The biggest thing I can say right now is what we want to do is more educate the public of what DPW does. Educate them about field park maintenance, so they would understand what goes into field and park maintenance, right? Where we would tell, where they will understand sometimes that you can't play on the field and different things like that, or why we're telling them that they can't play on the fields, because we have professionals that do the fields for us and we take a lot of guidance from those people, as well as me doing it in-house of walking the field for not only for just reserving the fields, but mostly for safety of my my residents to use those fields, and the young youth to use those fields. A lot of the fields I take to heart, because a lot of them are, I started at recreation. I started at recreation when I grew my love of fields, parks, and different things. So that's some of the things we're looking to do. Sorry. Okay. That's a little bit of view of what we do, highlights or what we're looking to do, accomplishments that we accomplish. So, any questions?
Yeah, while the council's looking for questions, one of the interesting things, Ed Roy hit some of them, is that on a regular basis, the DPW, there's 44 different tasks that the DPW does, either on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. And even though Mr. Jenkins is coughing right now, it's good that the presentation was tonight, because last night he'd been up since the night before because of the snowstorm. So at least he had the opportunity to get a little rest before tonight. But so those are some of the things. And then when we talk next week, we'll have some significant conversations just about capital projects that the DPW is involved with, as well as equipment for the DPW. And Ed Roy hit some of the items when he talked about the electric charging stations and the future of what our fleet would look like. And then there's plans that are in the works for how do we, once you acquire the equipment, you have to have training to make sure that you can repair them properly, because repairing an electric motor is different than repairing an internal combustion engine. So those are some of the things that Mr. Jenkins and I are looking at and looking at that with some other folks. So are you okay? Can you answer questions now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Good. The tickle's gone. So if anybody has questions, they can ask.
Judy, Councilwoman Wasatski has her hand raised. You're on mute. Ms. Marin, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, Councilwoman Wasatski.
Thank you. I have a bunch of questions, but I just want to start by asking one question. When you look at the overtime and the decrease you're projecting a decrease of 26% in 2023. I don't know if this question's for Bob, or for Mr. Jenkins, but can you explain why you're projecting a decrease of 26%?
Lisa, what we're doing right now, right? By the help of Mr. Hoffman, right? We're finding other ways of doing it, so we don't use as much overtime to do it, and doing it the proper way. That's why you would see a decrease. Doing it by federal standards and different things like that. That's why you would see a decrease in the overtime. But it's working. So far, we started it as of January 1st, and we have saw probably a 50-60% improvement with my overtime right now. With the help of Mr. Hoffman, and my new human resource director, we're looking to do better with my overtime. So we'll, just finding different ways of doing it.
So this is in all the activities, not one in particular?
Yes, it's well, yes, and but it looks like when you look at it, it looked like most of it was in sanitation, right? But like I said, we finding different ways of organizing it right now to make it better for, to make it better. And like I said, if you look from January 1st to now, it has made it better.
Okay, so I just have a bunch of questions, comments. Charging vehicles. My only comment about that is there are tons of grants out there now with setting up, the chargers. I know I went to. I know Carol Rauscher was very involved in this issue, and I know that she had invited me to some symposiums that I had participated in. So when you're talking about setting up these stations, there's a lot of money out there for that.
Yeah.
And I know I've even corresponded with some of the people, and I have their numbers. In terms of building and grounds, and you had mentioned your organizational chart. And building and grounds, you have 6 positions, and all of them are vacant. All 6 are vacant. So, right, Mr. Jenkins? So does that mean that right now we have nobody doing buildings and grounds?
No, well, we have my guys, Lisa, we cross-trained my guys to do those things, right? A lot of my guys are cross-trained to get most of those things done until we can fill those vacancies.
Okay.
I have to my guys are cross-trained.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now, so leaf collection.
Yes.
I had concerns that I had spoken to Bob about in terms of leaf collection, because I can tell you that in many of the streets, we went from a policy of having a schedule to a policy of no schedule, basically put it out and it will get collected. So I was seeing on many of the streets in Englewood, you come and it would be collected on Tuesday, on Wednesday, the neighbor would put it out, it'd be collected on Thursday. And is leaf collection going to change for the fall of 2023?
Lisa, the reason why we did what we did, because we're in every ward every day. I have 4 crews. That's one maybe in the third, one's in the 3rd ward, one in the 4th ward of in every ward every day. So that's why we came away from I was looking at my neighboring towns, Teaneck, Tenafly. They don't put out, they just say leaf collection from this month to that month, right? And that's why we did it like that, because like I said, the thing is we're in every ward every day. Not just a certain week and things like that. We find out we would have the same problem what you were just talking about, is that we was having that problem when we would tell residents to put it out at a certain time, and they would, and just at the same thing as we go through, they'll come out, they put it out at the wrong time. I'd rather have it like it is now. We don't give them a set time. If I have 4 crews out there, 4 crews should be able to get the job done. I think the 2023 calendar is already out. So we're doing it, we plan on doing it this year the same way.
Okay. Okay. I have an echo now. Do you hear that? Okay. In terms of just 2 or 3 more comments. In terms of the shredding trucks, are we able to do that more often, or is that too costly?
I don't think it's too much costly. What I have to sit down with my city manager, right? Because I do agree, because I think it's a very good event that we have. If we could go to doing it maybe a couple of more times a year. But I have to sit down with my city manager and my CFO to see if I have money and, money in the budget to do that.
Okay, and two more comments. So pothole repairs, I mean, I know we're still in the winter, and I know we had that special vehicle that went and was going to prioritize our streets. When are we going to get back the results of that study? And I guess because the potholes, I mean, it's pretty problematic now, and I know we were waiting on that study. Do we have those results yet? Are we getting that in the next couple weeks?
I can answer that. We received the results, I believe it was late in the day on February 9th. So we've been going through the data. Basically, our engineer has been going through the data, and then Ed Roy and I have just had a I wouldn't say a brief look, but a cursory look, but we're just looking at the streets that have been identified, and then we're looking at the cost for the repairs on the streets. But we should have more information for the council on next Thursday about that.
Okay, thank you. And then just my last comment is
Lisa,
going to be about.
Lisa, could I add to what Robert said?
Yes, of course, of course.
I want to let you know, if weather permit, we're out doing potholes just about every day, as well as weather permit, right? As they come in, I send crews out every day to do potholes, right? It is a problem, but we try to reserve our streets as much as we can until we look at our studies and stuff. So I have a pothole crew out almost every day.
All right, and thank you. And my last comment, is I'm not gonna. I think my last comment is we used to do our field maintenance in a different way, and I know it changed when we went to the one-armed trucks, and of course we do have a problem with our fields, and I think and I know we've always circled around the issue of our kids are not. We have problems with drainage when there is a rain. Our parks, our fields are often closed for a week at a time, and our kids who have to go into other towns who have the same grass fields, but they're opening it up and letting the kids play. And so I don't really want to put this out to a question. I just want to say that over the next month or two, I look forward to having conversations about how we're going to better maintain our fields and our parks and our playgrounds, so that we get that they're safe and that we get better use out of it for our residents. So it's just more of a comment that I look forward to the conversations. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Wisotsky. Does anyone else have some questions? Councilman Cobb?
May I make a point of order?
Oh, sure.
Sure. Just as a follow-up to one of the questions, about the charging stations. We've got some meetings coming up where about that. The BPU will be coming in to do a study for the city so that we can have that. But we also have a company that wants to donate some charging stations to the city. So we have a meeting coming up with them on the 13th to hear them out. So we may be able to get the benefit of some additional charging stations, and we'll work through that. But that was just a comment. So sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Charles? Councilman Cobb?
Mr. Jenkins, I'm going to talk about this, the overtime. I think that one would think it's fool's gold, because the problem here is the weather hasn't been bad. And I think that we should caution reducing the overtime for the DPW because you're charged with cleaning up this city, making the city look good. And it takes time to do that. And all we got to do, we haven't had no snow or anything like that. However, what people should understand and see is that we've had an increase in leaf falling and taking you longer to get the leaves up. So that poses an overtime question. So I would caution you as to giving back or reducing the overtime, because I think that, at that number 700, I think we're lucky. And that's only 700 because we haven't had bad winters the last two years. So I would say you need to think about that, number one. Number two, I think that we should put money in the budget for training the whole department. I think training should be a part of everybody's line item. Every department should invest in their employees. And I think it's critical that we do that. And a lot of times your employees, Mr. Jenkins, have to be certified to do certain things, to operate certain equipment as well, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we should, for those who want to get it, we should put that carrot out there to help them out, because what we should be doing is trying to be more efficient in the execution of the services. And how we become with that is we become more technology driven, but we look at the efficiencies that you can provide from a DPW perspective, because the challenge truly, your department is out there in all kinds of weather all the time, 24/7 we're doing things. So, I think that the more that we get people trained up and offer that, you may even attract employees, because the word gets out that you're investing in the employees, which will build a better bench and a bigger bench for you in terms of that, but also from an operating efficiency as well, But again, we haven't had all these snows and things like that. I'd like to see that money be converted into training dollars for our people, so that we can do other things as well. We had the lady who was doing all the medium work for us, doing all those plantings and things of that nature, which is a specialty to do. And maybe we could have people learn how to do those kinds of things in the city as well. So I think that's important. Just to having one or two people know is not the best way to do that. I think that we need to start to invest those kind of money. And also the other thing is you have to, I think, look at what type of equipment we should be using in the future, and things that we have more demand on equipment. You also, as I said to the fire chief earlier, you have a aging aging inventory of equipment as well. And how do we get around and get some of those things and address some of those holes, as well as putting a plan together to start to replace some of that equipment, because it is truly expensive. So I think that, you need to, I would recommend or suggest look at those numbers and make sure, because what they are is what they are when it gets approved. But, you've learned that the sewer, we got an aging infrastructure. So what does that mean? Do we have the cameras to look at what's going on in the pipes? Do we have those kinds of things? And if we don't have those things, we need to make investments in those things, so we are able to be in a better position to respond when these things happen. So, I'm just telling you and asking you to be thoughtful in that way, so that you have the tools to execute your job, because you get more blame than any other department in the city if something ain't right. You know what I mean? You know that, right? So, what we want to do is show people that we collectively are committed to providing the best services possible, which you do a great job doing with the tools and the resources that you have. But we need to make sure that you can continue to do that, and you need to ask on those things. And I would just share with you, and getting your guys trained up in different things that they would want, different things that you need, and challenge these guys to get these this training, I think would be helpful too.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay. Ed Roy?
Yes, Council President, I want to comment on some of the things that Councilman Cobb brought up, right? Yes,
Of course.
we have, you know, I guess I'm not doing a good job with approaching my guys, but but I'm glad he said what he said, because of some of them listening. I have approached a whole lot of my guys about getting certifications where it would help, where it would benefit the city, going to school and different things like that, which the city probably would help with some of those things. But I don't know if I'm doing it right, because I got some positions here that need certified people, and trying to, you know, just trying to get some of those guys to do it is a little tough, but maybe I'm doing it wrong. But hopefully through my new HR director and my city manager, maybe we could find a better way to, as Councilman Cobb said, dingle that carrot out there for them to take advantage of some of these things that would also, it would also help help my city here. Then I don't have to subcontract things out, things like that. We could do more things in-house, and it would help me tremendously if we could do some of those things. But I just need my guys to, you know, just see that what we're trying to do is, you know, make it better for my residents, that, you know, and different things like that. So I don't have to subcontract things out. I could do things in-house and do more things in-house.
Thank you, Mr. J. Yeah.
And Mr. Jenkins, that was a nice segue for some of our future training plans. So that's good. Our HR director is going to be rolling out some internal training, and some of that's going to be for the DPW.
Terrific. Okay, do we have any other questions for Mr. Jenkins? Okay, thank you, Ed Roy, very, very much. We appreciate your being with us, and thank you. We are now going to move on to the city clerk's office. Michael, would you like to prepare us for that?
Sorry, just before you start, someone has their hand raised and we lost Mr. Wilson. I don't know if the person who has their hand raised is Mr. Wilson.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
It's because it doesn't have a name. It just says Samsung. I don't know if that's him or not. I don't know if it's a member of the public or if it's him.
I don't think it was him, Yancy, because he was visible. Now he's not.
Why don't you bring him in, see if it's him, and then if it's not him, we could let him out.
Whoever has their name listed as Samsung, you can do a rename on your name. Mr. Wilson, if that's you, if you could please do that. So I know that's you, so I can move you over into into panelists. Okay, this is getting complicated.
Is anybody responding, Yancy?
No, and I don't have a chat open. Or Mr. Wilson, if that's you as Samsung, just send me a text message so I know it's you.
Okay, instead of, I think, Michael, could you set us up for the city clerk's presentation?
Sure. So Yancey's, the city clerk's salary and wage last year was $204,000. This year it's $227,000, which is an increase of 11%. And the O&E other expenses went from $89,750 to $92,750, which is only a $3,000 increase, which is 3%.
Could you give us the pages that we could find?
Sure. So the page number 10 on the budget revenue preparation worksheet,
Okay,
page 10.
thank you. Okay, Yancy, you have the floor.
So the clerk's office and the city clerk's position is a statutory position, just a quick overview of my department. So it's a statutory position. That means it's required by state law. Basic functionality of the clerk's office is I'm the secretary to the governing body. That means I attend these meetings. I take your minutes. I do the agendas. I do the resolutions, ordinances, make sure they're followed up on, make sure all the statutory requirements for all those resolutions and ordinances are completed. I'm the secretary to the municipal corporation. That means that correspondence that is sent to the city, I accept that correspondence on behalf of the city. So I'll get a lot of communications from other departments and also lawsuits. We accept the lawsuits on behalf of the city. I am the custodian of records. That's the Oprah request part. Also, all the records that are in storage, working with departments to do the request for destruction. And I'll be talking about our upcoming project, which is digitizing our records. I am also the licensing official. So that means I do basic license, but not basic licensing. I'll do things as basic as garage sale permits to raffle and bingo permits and liquor licensing. Just for everyone's record, we have about 5 or 6 liquor licenses right now that are in the works for being transferred. So hopefully we'll get those completed soon for those business owners. And last but not least, I am the election official. So I oversee the elections as they happen in the city, working hand in hand with county and state officials to make sure the process is done as open and fairly as possible, making sure everybody's rights are ensured. My biggest challenge for 2022 was the census redistricting of the wards. That went well, as best as it could. We did send out notices to everybody. Still had some, even though we did send out a letter to every registered voter who was moved from one district to the other, not everybody was aware of that. So we're still working on that. Oh, I see Mr. Wilson. 1 second, sorry. Okay. And I get to operate the Zoom. So that was the biggest challenge for 2022. Going back to Oprah's. Oprah is the biggest challenge we have right now in this department. They take up a good bulk of our time, and they're taking up a nice amount of tax dollars. Pretty much in my department, and we're a small department, there's only the 3 of us here. Right now I have 1 full-time employee devoted to just about 90 to 95% of her job is just Oprah. Logging in the Oprahs, sending out the Oprahs to all the various departments. As much as I would love to have a supercomputer where every single record in the city where is stored in that one computer and I can just quickly access it to complete these Oprah requests, that's not the case. We have to process Oprahs, send them out to various departments to receive the records that are being requested. Once they're received, review them, redact them, make sure that they don't fall under any of the exemptions, and then send them out. There's a lot of back and forth. The requests are getting more and more complicated. And as we're sending them out throughout the city, we have the equivalent of 2 full-time employees that are handling Oprah requests within the other departments. We have a part-time attorney working with our city attorney right now to help us with processing the complicated Oprah requests. Currently, our records are stored off-site. They are in a storage facility. For those who are aware or not aware, there was a flood after the basement flooded. The records were stored in the basement of City Hall once upon a time. And after Hurricane Sandy, there was a good 4 feet of water in the basement. So a lot of the records were destroyed. So right now, most of our records are stored offsite. So part of the 2023 initiatives that we're trying to work on is to move the records from the current offsite facility to a new offsite facility that's a little bit better in cost. And also that facility will help us go through all those records, all those boxes, see what can be destroyed, records that are out of their retention schedule. So retention schedule meaning how long we get to keep those. We're allowed by law to keep those records. The state tells us how long we're allowed to keep records. And then whatever we can destroy, that helps us with the cost of storing those records. And then to begin digitizing records. So we'll day one forward, once we figure out what we're doing, start digitizing those records and maybe little by little work backwards to digitize some of the older records. I'm personally excited about digitizing some of our old minute books, because right now when I get a request for something, it's just literally going through them page by page, trying to figure out what decade a resolution was passed in. We're also working with the court on a new audio system. As we've seen in our meetings in the past in the court, the audio system is not up to where we need it to be. So hopefully we'll move forward with that. That was approved, thank you very much, with that capital ordinance. So right now I'm working with the QPA to see what other systems are out there. So just so we can get other proposals and not just the one, so we make sure we get the best system in for the city. We're also working with the construction department to get the company called Spatial Data Logic in here. They will help us with digitizing our records as well. We'll be doing not just the storage of the records, we'll also be doing a lot of online forms through that system. And we'll be able to link most of our records to a block and lot. So it won't just be one item, so not just the construction department. So anything that we can link to that address, we'll link to that address. But right now it'll just start off with my department and the construction department. One of the biggest challenges I'm expecting between this year and next year is through elections. Because of the new laws in the upcoming presidential election, we're expecting the new machines to be rolled out within the next year or two. They have to be in place by the next presidential election. The new machines, if you've gone to do early voting, those will be the machines that will be used throughout all the districts. The county will be rolling out that project. They have not given us a schedule as to when they're going to be rolling out those new machines. So it's going to be very important to do an educational initiative with the residents and the voters so that they are aware and know how to use these new machines, in addition to their regular their other ways of voting, which is the early voting, and the mail-in ballots. So that's going to be the big, for me, working with this year is those new voting machines. So that's pretty much the bulk of what I have. Any questions?
Sure.
Like I said, we're the
Thank you
smallest.
very much, Yancy.
We're the smallest department and one of the smallest. So.
Okay.
Mr.
Mr.
Cobb.
Cobb?
Yancy, my question is focused on Oprah, because you spend a lot of time and energy. Have we considered putting in a workflow tool? Because you said there are other people who participate in this. And if you had a workflow tool that came into you, and then it would send messages to everybody along that path to get what they need to get. And you could still view the progress of the request. And I think that would be helpful to that. And then it gets to the end, and then you can image it then it's stored and everything, but the workflow would at least take some stress off the system. So, you know, and it would just be helpful. I think we should invest in that. We got too much paper around there. And the unfortunate thing is if there's a fire or something like that, the paper gets destroyed, we don't have the records. So I think it's paramount that we invest in some type of tool to help you with this process, because it is consuming your department, which I know I saw firsthand. So, you know, that was my question. And I think we should research these workflow tools, because you get it and then you can send it around to all the other people that you mentioned that are a part of this process. And then they can, you know, they check the documents and they get it. Then you don't have to chase them. You know, you sent it to them on this date. Here's what it is. You know what the progress is, and they can send it right back to you once they gathered whatever you need from them. But it just allows you to manage this process easier with some type of automation as opposed to the way it is today.
That's the spatial data logic that actually will help you with that. There's an entire module devoted to the clerk's office.
Right.
So it'll be everything A to Z the clerk's department does.
Right.
Be incorporated in that, including Oprah. I forgot to mention that part of that, and why we're also including the construction department with that, is the bulk of my Oprah requests, half my Oprah requests are related to the building and construction office. As you see, there's a high turnover in property sales in the city. So a lot of our requests are related to the real estate agents who want to know open permits, closed permits, et cetera. Once we get this company SDL on board and all the construction records are on there, that information will automatically be online. So the public can actually go onto our website. They'll be able to log into this program and they'll be able to see that, yes, there are open permits, closed permits. So the basic questions that we get half the time through Oprah requests, they'll automatically be answered. So that should be a huge time saving for us in the long run. You save time, you save money, you save energy. That's a big plus. So in a few years, we'll be able to do that.
Sorry about that. What is the cost on that tool?
The proposal for that?
It's for all of the licenses for the other departments to use it as well. It's $98,000 for the first year for the implementation.
I don't even know why we are even having this discussion based on what we've done. Why aren't we moving ahead with it? This is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. And also, does that tool allow you to image the documents and store them away, Yancy? Does that provide that?
Yes,
well, why we lost $98,000 with a flood, easy, right? So why not? So we can get our storage and get our documents in a repository in one place, and so that it makes your life that much easier. Let's stop acting like dinosaurs here and let's go. You got my support, and I'm done. Thank you.
I want to thank Mr. Hoffman. Actually, you know, he was the one who encouraged us to look at this program, and it is one of the best programs out there not only in the state but in the nation. And so I'm really happy and excited.
Well,
it's encouraging.
I just say let's do the responsible thing here. You know, there are a whole lot of programs, you know, imaging and all these kind of things, but let's put our data where it should be in this century, not last century, right? The data is the most important thing we have. So let's just do that. I'm all in support of that. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Wilson has his hand raised.
Yes.
Okay.
Yancy,
Sorry.
that was me. I've got to get ready to go mobile, and I was trying to test it out on my cell phone. Unfortunately, I have an emergency, but kudos to you for what you do and how you do it with a smile on your face in that glass bowl. As soon as we walk into City Hall, you're always welcome. People that come in, and your wealth of information. And me personally, I appreciate what you do. I talked to Mr. Hoffman in regards to the data, retaining the data, and I think that that's very important. And I am on board as well. I know we lost Ed Roy, but my challenge with Ed Roy was just we get water DPW. And so we would have to really look real closely on installing those charging stations, because how do you do electric sitting in water? I have no idea. but I'll be going mobile, and hopefully you can tag me in, Yancy. Okay.
The Samsung, okay, all right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Does anyone else have any questions for Yancy? Ken, I can't tell. Are you raising your hand?
No, thank you, Yancy. That was a wonderful presentation, and you definitely have my support.
Okay. Okay. So Yancy, we thank you very much. That
Don't go
program,
anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
that program sounds very exciting, and I look
Very
forward to
excited
having
about
it as well. It's great.
Very, very excited.
Okay. So, Mr. Kaufman, will you set the stage for our Human Resources and Finance Department presentation?
Nope.
I hope that was a
good.
joke. Okay.
No, that was, I told Michael if he wanted, I would take this last one and do that.
Okay.
But Michael, if you want, you can do it. It's up to you.
Whatever. You're
I'll
the
do it.
city manager, whatever the city manager or council president want.
All right, I'll do it. And this is about the Department of Administration, which includes Human Resources, the Office of the City Manager, and also Finance. And then after I finish this, I'll give a quick segue to Michael for Finance, because they work hand in hand with everything that we're doing. So basically, the Office of the City Manager oversees the general operations of the city, as well as the executive and the administrative functions of the city government as outlined in the city charter. The Department of Administration is involved with all issues that are related to the city. It's everything from requests for parking passes to updating the website. And by the way, we're about to launch our new website, and that'll be on Wednesday, March 15th. And I know if you're a fan of Roman literature, it's a special day, but we're still going to launch it on March 15th. We coordinate the Title 59 insurance claims for property and liability accidents, as well as interacting with all levels of government, such as the county and the state and the federal government. But a recent example of interactions with the other levels of government would be the Jones Road over Route 4 bridge replacement project. So that's one example. We're also involved with the My Englewood newsletter, special events such as the menorah lighting and Christmas tree lightings, IT services, and strategic planning, as well as responding to resident inquiries and other things that come up. During calendar year 2022, you heard from our fire chief, but that was the firefighters process was one of the things that was very successful in 2022. It was implemented in a short time period, but we were able to prove that ordinance 19-02 works successfully. In the last quarter of the year, we were able to settle union contracts, and then earlier this year, we were able to settle a few more. One of the fun projects that we worked on was the Forest Avenue railroad tracks. The railroad tracks were closed for 26 weeks, and working with the city council in 2022, as well as our engineer and DPW and a couple of contractors, we were able to diagnose the problem, solve it, and get the railroad tracks open. We are also involved with the remediation and improvements to City Hall and to some of our other buildings. So for the budget in 2023, the overall budget for the Department of Administration shows a 38.6% increase, or 38.06% increase. And the majority of this increase is related to implementing the council's 2022 authorization to fund the assistant or deputy city manager position. So in 2022, the position was authorized, but it wasn't funded. So funds were budgeted for that, as well as for some administrative support for that, office equipment, things of that nature. And then looking ahead for the remainder of 2023, the big issues are strategic planning and the multi-year capital budget plan that will be driving improvements which will benefit the health, welfare, and safety of our residents and businesses for decades to come. So you heard from Mr. Jenkins about Street Scan. We're looking at using software and technology. Yancey talked about SDL and some of the things that will do to help us. So we're looking at ways that we can work smarter so that we can provide better service to our residents and then use our tax dollars more effectively and efficiently. I mentioned the capital budget plan, and during the March 9th budget meeting, we'll be talking about that more in depth. And as we're talking tonight, right now we have 186 capital projects that we're evaluating. So that's everything from road paving to replacing traffic signals and bump outs. It's infrastructure improvements. It's funding capital equipment in the DPW, in the fire department. And it's just the 1,001 things that people take for granted in the city, but you have to make sure that you've looked at it and you're making sure that it's improved for the future, or things are replaced before they fail or they become obsolete. And that's one of the key things that the deputy city manager position will be looking at, is to help basically ensure the completion of multi-year projects and multi-departmental projects that have been funded by the city. They've been authorized and funded by the city. And that will just, help make sure that we're providing the best services for all of the residents here in Englewood. And I'll close by saying that our priorities remain the same. Today I started my 8th month here, and our goals are, by any objective measure, Englewood will be rated in the top 1% of all municipalities in the state of New Jersey. So there's room for others to join us, but we're going to be rated by any objective measure in all of the things that we do in the top 1%. We're going to continuously improve our customer service to residents and to others. We're going to be a laboratory of innovation. We're going to think outside the box when necessary so that we can complete projects. So the railroad tracks was an example of that. And just putting our heads together and looking at SDL and some other things, and realizing that by investing in this software, we will be able to free up staff time to do other things that have a backlog. We want to plan and think strategically to solve problems. And those problems are not just local. We're impacted by whatever happens in the world. So we need to be able to not panic, but to think and to react. And then we need to invest in repairs and improvements to our work locations so that we're all safe and that we have the proper tools, whether it's software, hardware, or other things that are needed for our physical plant. And then we need to invest in our staff for training. And I believe I've heard several members of the governing body mention that tonight. So that was Councilman Cobb had mentioned that, Councilman Rosenzweig has mentioned that in the past, but that's what we have to do. And then we're going to be investing in technology, as I said before, so that we can work smarter. And then we need to look to the future. We need to have succession planning in place so that we make sure that we're part of the continuum, and that we're able to serve our residents without missing a beat as people retire or move on. So thank you, Council President. That's the overview of administration and HR.
Thank you so much. I would just like to thank you for being here. I am so delighted that you accepted our offer to come to be the city manager. I have said over and over again, it's a very complex city. There's a lot going on. There was a lot for you to look at. You still haven't seen everything. There are lots of surprises, and you've managed one issue at a time to hold the course very steady. And every day I hear something from a resident, that makes me very happy about the job you're doing. I just want you to know you're appreciated. And I don't really, at this point, I think I'm questioned out, but I just wanted you to hear that from me. And
Well, thank you so much. I enjoy being here. I enjoy working. We have a wonderful group of people to work with, and it's a pleasure to wake up every day and think about Englewood and come to work and solve problems or create opportunities for success. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'm sure someone else would like to. Ken?
Yeah, thank you, Bob, and thank you for a very successful budget presentation this year. We're more than halfway through. Since we're mentioning the Ides of March, I have a riddle worthy of Shakespeare for you as well.
Oh, no.
What is the difference between an assistant city manager and a deputy city manager? Because you just use them interchangeably. So,
yeah. Well, no, the assistant city manager can work on projects. It's more as a staff position, but the deputy city manager would have line responsibilities, would be able to manage projects, oversee projects, and would be able to direct department heads so that we could complete different projects. So that's the real difference.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else have anything to say? Comment, question? If not, I will close this session. Do we have to have a motion to, oh no, we have to go into the public. How could I forget this? We have to do the public session at this point. I would like to remind anyone who would like to make a comment or have a question, we need you to give us your name, your address. You have 3 minutes, and Yancy will call on the people since I'm not able to see you.
So just a reminder.
I got a question. Did Michael Kaufman, is he supposed to speak tonight too, finance?
I think it was announced that
Bob
Hoffman was going to speak for him.
I could just go.
How did he speak for him?
Budget.
He didn't say anything about finance.
For a couple seconds. I could just go through my budget.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I didn't do that, Michael, so thank you.
Just throughout my accounts, the only budget account that actually went up a little bit was the tax salary and wages that was due to the tax collector getting a raise last year, but it wasn't budgeted for, so we budgeted for this year. Everything else is the same. One thing I plan on doing this year is going out for RFP for banking services. So one of the things that I'm going to be putting in the RFP is for the banks to pay for payroll. So even though we switched to a new payroll company in the within the last year, that will be paid for by the banks. I've talked to other CFOs. We have a group chat. I've gotten RFPs from them that their banks also pay for their payroll. So I'll be putting that out sometime this year. And that's about it.
And Michael, I apologize if I cut you off. I had assumed that.
No, it's all good.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have a comment? Okay. So once again, we're going to open the public session. Anyone who has a question or a comment, please come forward. We need your name, your address. You have 3 minutes, and we welcome your comments and questions. Yancy, could you please call on people?
Okay, just as a reminder for the public, at the bottom of your screen, just press raise hand if you would like to speak. That will put you in queue to be called on. First one has their hand raised is Diane Jansen. Please unmute.
Hi, Diane Jansen, 589 Ridgeland Terrace. Thank you very much, Council President Marin, for a very nice 2 days of presentations with Mr. Hoffman. And I'd like to echo Councilwoman and Chairperson's commendations. You know, we are so happy to have you here, and we really appreciate Mr. Cobb's and Mr. Wilson's questions specifically pertaining to the budget and doing business differently. So I'd like to start off on that positive note. With respect to funded depreciation, do we fund depreciation? Because we've been talking about not having enough money to cover things. So I don't understand if we're funding depreciation, how that could happen. As far as DPW goes, this is just an aside. You know, the leaf situation has worked out really well here in the narrow streets. They've come by and we've not had blockage because of the new schedule. So I wanted to mention that. I wanted to thank Fire Chief Kaplan for carrying on with the type of presentations that Fire Chief Ennis had previously done. And I'm hoping that not only will Fire Chief Kaplan continue in Fire Chief Ennis's footsteps, but that others will also give us those kinds of presentations in the future. I do have one concern. We do have those 6 new firefighters for 3 years, and that's only 3 years. And if we're adding other firefighters in at 2 to 4 a year, are we going to have 1 year where we're going to have a hit of 10 firefighters all at once in terms of finances? And lastly, Yancy, thank you for all your help with everything, but especially with elections. We had some concerns regarding restrictions and assignment of poll workers, as well as, and we were able to go to the chairman of the Board of Elections about those concerns, and we're hoping that he will make changes with the secretary, who's Mr. Giuliano. So Mr. Giuliano and Mr. Miller, we're hoping they'll be doing some things that will help us here in Englewood. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane.
Nobody else has their hand raised. Oh, here you go. Mr. Raymond Diaz. Mr. Diaz, please unmute.
Good evening, everyone. Just two comment and question. One about the fire department. I see there's 18 officers and 35 firefighters. So that's 1 officer to 2 firefighters. So I just want an explanation on those supervisors. Are the officers have different duties that they perform? How are they being utilized? I mean, if you have can't we at least delegate down from a captain to a lieutenant to do decision making and then hire just more firefighters, because that's what we need, the manpower? And I think you can do the same possibly in the police department, because I still have questions about that. It seems like we're kind of overloaded in those positions, but I don't know the background behind it. So the next question is the the deputy city manager, who is presently performing those duties now?
Should I answer that?
Yes.
No, the council, I was asking the council president.
No, I think what we've done is answered questions when all of the other questions have been asked. Ray, we'll answer that question, but anyone else who would like to speak, let's have them come forward, and then we'll come back to you.
You got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure you still have 1.5 minutes. Did you have any other questions?
No,
before?
that's it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no one else, we'll have Bob answer that question.
Yeah, no one else has their hand raised.
Okay, Bob, could you answer that question?
Yes,
Or maybe-
sorry, go ahead.
It occurred to me that you might want the question about the fire department answered by Kevin, since he has great knowledge of that department. I mean, it's up to you.
Well, I wasn't going to be able to answer the fire department question tonight. I was going to, I've made a note, and then we would get back to Mr. Diaz at a later
Okay.
date. But just the deputy city manager is, basically I'm filling that function right now, and
Keeps you busy.
Yeah, it would be helpful to be able to offload some of the capital projects to others.
Okay. So, Kevin?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Did you
Yeah.
hear Ray Diaz's question about the use of the superior officers as opposed to the linemen? Who,
Yes.
how it's determined?
We're a unique department where we're not civil service, and what we've been trying to do in the past was come up to state and national standards, and we have been falling behind as far as those standards, and we've been doing a great job of handling things understaffed and under supervised. So it was incumbent upon this chief and probably the administration before to grant us the opportunity to try to fulfill some of the organizational charts. And anytime that we're working from a deficit, it's always strange, and it puts a strain on the budget and on the personnel when we're not up to the numbers nationally. So we have a truck, an engine, and another engine responding. So it's three apparatuses, and at any moment those apparatuses could be separated. So the idea behind that was to have a supervised officer on each one of those rigs, and the captain would be running in a car to go ahead and assess the situations and call off any engines or any trucks that may or may not be needed, or call on to recall. So there is kudos to be given for the promotion of officers, even though at this particular juncture, we are absolutely top heavy. But we're behind. We've increased numbers. We're at 28, but one could argue that we're probably 32,000 as a city. Whether some of those are residents or illegals or whatever it is, but as the fire chief alluded to earlier, when they go to these massive structures, and you have 3 and 6, that's an insurmountable task for us. So if in fact that when we do get recall members to those structures, we have the appropriate numbers for supervisions. So hopefully that would help answer your question a little bit.
Kevin, it's great to have you here. Thank you. You're an amazing resource.
Thank
and
you.
I hope Ray got the information he wanted. At this point, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Thank you. I'll second it. Yancy, roll call.
Councilman Cobb? Oh, we're doing motion to adjourn. Councilman Rosenzweig?
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilman Wilson?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Wasatski?
Yes.
Council President Marin?
Thank you very much. Yes. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here. Okay.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.